I was supposed to die one day after my wedding. That was the secret my own parents hid from me for 14 years. And the cruelest part? The people who finally tried to use that secret against me were not strangers. They were the ones I trusted with my whole heart. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened to me and what I became because of it. I grew up in a small kingdom called Sumangar, ruled by my father, a kind and honest king. People respected him. They said his word was like a line carved in stone. But behind the walls of our palace, there was a secret carved much deeper than any of his promises, a secret about me. When I was 14, a traveling astrologer read the lines on my palm and went pale. He told my parents that I would marry one day, and exactly one day later, I would die. Just like that. No warning, no illness, no battle. Just death, waiting patiently for my wedding night to pass. My parents never told me. Instead, they buried that truth so deep that even the walls of the palace seemed to whisper around it without ever saying it out loud. Every time a marriage proposal came for me, my father found a reason to refuse it. Every single time. And I never understood why. I just thought he loved me too much to let me go. I was wrong. He didn't want to let me go because he didn't want to bury me. By the time I was 18, the whispers had grown louder. Neighboring kingdoms began to talk. They said the king of Sumangar was hiding something about his daughter. Maybe she was cursed. Maybe she was mad. Maybe she was simply unmarriageable. My father panicked. Rumors are dangerous things. They grow teeth in the dark. So he and my mother made a decision that would change my life forever. They decided to send me away, not to protect me, but to protect their secret. They told me about a neighboring kingdom called Gautamgar, where a demon named Baron had taken over the throne by trickery, imprisoning the rightful king. They told me it would be a test of my courage, a chance to prove myself before marriage. They said I had to go alone. No soldiers, no guards, nothing but my horse and my pet parrot, Mithu, who had been with me since childhood. I believed every word. I had no idea I was a pawn being moved across someone else's chessboard. I left the palace with my heart full of pride, thinking I was finally being trusted with something important. I had no idea that my own father feared losing me to death more than he feared losing me to distance. I had no idea that this test was really just a way to keep me far from home, far from suspicion, far from a wedding that could kill me. The forest swallowed me before nightfall. The trees grew thick and the air grew heavy with the sound of unseen animals. Mithu, perched on my shoulder, kept warning me to be careful. We stopped to rest near a stream when I heard a man's voice screaming for help. I found him in the bushes, bleeding, an arrow buried deep in his side. He told me a hunter had mistaken him for an animal in the dark. I believed him too. I believed everyone back then. That was my biggest flaw. I trusted too easily, too completely, without asking why. The old man told me about a yellow spring nearby, the kind of water that could heal wounds in a single night if mixed with turmeric. He begged me to bring some back for him. I left him there, promising to return quickly. I reached the spring and knelt beside it. The moment my fingers touched the water, colors exploded around me, and then everything went still. My body turned to stone. Cold, gray, lifeless stone. I could still hear. I could still feel fear crawling through what used to be my blood. But I could not move. I could not scream. That wounded old man was never wounded at all. He was a trap, and I had walked straight into it because I trusted a stranger's tears. I don't know how long I stood there as a statue. Mitha told me later it felt like forever. He flew in circles above the forest, terrified, helpless, until a young man named Rohit found him crying near the spring. Rohit listened to the parrot's frantic story and decided, without hesitation, to help a princess he had never even met. They were told the only person who could undo the curse was a powerful forest guardian named Sodomini. When they found her, she did not offer comfort. She offered a price. She told Rohit that if he wanted me to live again, he would have to cut off his own hand and give it to her. He did not even flinch. He drew his sword and severed his own hand without a single scream of protest, just silent, brutal sacrifice for a stranger. I was brought back to life by the time the sun was setting, with no idea what had just happened to save me. I opened my eyes and saw a parrot crying and a young man standing beside the water, blood still dripping from his arm, his face pale with pain but his eyes calm, as if what he had done was simply right. In that single moment, something inside me shifted. I had grown up surrounded by people who had truths for me to protect me. And here was a man who had given me his own hand without asking for anything in return. I didn't fall in love with his face. I fell in love with the way he sacrificed everything without expecting a single word of thanks. But I had no time to dwell in that feeling. I learned that the same demon, Baron, who had captured the kingdom of Gautamgar, was still terrorizing innocent people, drinking their blood like wine.
He made a choice.
I would go there myself and end it. Rohit warned me not to. He said Baron was no ordinary man. He was something darker, something that fed on human life itself. I told him I was the princess of Sumangar, and I would not run from my own purpose. I walked into that demon's court alone, claiming I wanted to marry him for his power. It worked. Baron, drunk on his own arrogance, believed every word. He saw a beautiful young princess offering herself to him, and his pride blinded him completely. I told him I had cooked a special dish for our wedding feast, made with my own hands. He took one bite without suspicion. The moment the poison touched his tongue, he screamed. His body burned from the inside, twisting and collapsing until there was nothing left but ash on the floor. The villagers who had suffered under him for years finally saw their tormentor turn to dust. I want you to understand something here. That poison wasn't just herbs and spice. Every kingdom that had received my wedding invitation had secretly sent me a magical herb, believing they were helping prepare for my marriage. I had turned my own wedding invitation into a weapon. I had turned betrayal, the very thing that almost destroyed me, into a plan so quiet, so patient, that no one even realized they were part of it until the demon was already burning. That was the moment I understood real power. It isn't about screaming or fighting or revenge done in anger. It's about patience. It's about making your enemy walk willingly into the trap you built with their own greed. I returned home as a hero. The people cheered my name in the streets. My parents embraced me with tears, calling me brave, calling me brilliant. But the moment I asked to marry Rohit, the man who had sacrificed his hand to save my life, everything changed. My mother's face went cold. My father looked away. They told me I could not marry him because he was not royalty. I argued. I begged. I reminded them that I had been saved by his blood and his pain. And finally, after I refused to back down, my father told me the truth he had buried for years. He told me about the prophecy. He told me that I was destined to die one day after my wedding, and that was the real reason behind every refusal, every excuse, every lie they had ever told me growing up. I stood there in silence, feeling the weight of years of deception crash down on me all at once. Every refused marriage proposal, every strange excuse, every time they sent me away instead of explaining the truth. None of it had been protection. It had been control, dressed up as love. They had let me grow up surrounded by secrets instead of trusting me with the truth. They had let me believe I simply wasn't loved enough to be married off, when really, they were terrified of losing me forever. And instead of preparing me, instead of letting me face my fate with knowledge and strength, they hid it, hoping silence alone could keep death away. I felt anger rise inside me, sharper than anything I had felt standing in front of that demon. Because at least Baron's cruelty was honest. He never pretended to love me while lying to my face for 14 years. But here is where I made my choice, the choice that defined the rest of my life. I did not run from the prophecy. I did not hide from my fate the way my parents had hidden the truth from me. I told them I would marry Rohit anyway, prophecy or not. Because if death was waiting for me regardless, I refused to spend whatever time I had left living a lie built by other people's fear. My parents tried everything to stop me.
Tears. Pleading.
Even anger of their own. But I had already faced a demon and won. I had already turned to stone and come back. I was not the same frightened girl who once believed every word her parents told her without question. I had learned the hard way that real love does not hide the truth to control someone. Real love hands you the truth and stands beside you no matter how terrifying it is. The wedding happened in silence. No celebration, no joy in the air, only quiet dread hanging over every guest like a held breath. My parents wept through the entire ceremony, certain they were watching their daughter prepare for her own funeral. That night, I lay awake beside Rohit, waiting for the moment the prophecy would claim me. I watched the candle burn low, listening to every sound in the dark, wondering if death would come quietly or violently. I held his remaining hand and thought about everything I had survived just to reach this moment. The betrayal of silence from my own family, the trap set by a stranger's lies, the demon who tried to consume me out of arrogance. And then, just as the night grew darkest, a blinding light filled the room. A woman appeared out of that light, calm and powerful, and spoke directly to my father, who had rushed in at the sound. She told him that my own actions had rewritten the lines on my palm. By saving an entire kingdom from a demon, by giving courage and protection to people who had nothing left to hope for, I had earned a different fate. The darkness that once waited for me had been erased by the light of what I had done for others. And just like that, she vanished, leaving silence behind her, but a different kind of silence this time. Not the silence of secrets, the silence of relief. My parents broke down in tears, but this time they were tears of joy, not grief. They held me, apologizing over and over, admitting that they should have trusted me with the truth from the very beginning instead of trying to protect me with lies. I forgave them, eventually, but I never forgot the lesson that years of silence had taught me. Betrayal doesn't always come wearing the face of an enemy. Sometimes it comes from the people who claim to love you the most, hiding behind the excuse of protection. They will tell you they kept the truth from you because they didn't want to hurt you when really they just didn't want to face you with it themselves. I think about that old man in the woods sometimes too, the one who lied about being wounded, who lured me to that cursed spring with nothing but fake tears. He taught me something just as important. Trust is not something you give freely to anyone who cries in front of you. Trust is something you earn slowly, through actions, not words. And I think about Rohit, who gave me his hand without asking for anything, who never once used his sacrifice as a weight to hold over me. That is the difference between love and manipulation. Real love gives without keeping score. False love hides truths and calls it protection. Looking back now, I realize my real transformation didn't happen when I turned from stone back into flesh. It happened the moment I stopped being the girl who simply trusted whatever she was told and became the woman who demanded the truth, no matter how painful it was. I walked into a demon's court alone and turned his own arrogance into his downfall. I walked into my parents' carefully built wall of lies and refused to let fear control my future the way it had controlled theirs. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. The people who truly love you will give you the truth, even when it terrifies them to say it out loud. And the people who hide things from you, no matter how kind their reasons sound, are choosing their own comfort over your right to know your own life. I almost died because of a secret. I almost lost myself because of a lie disguised as a fairy tale told by a crying stranger in the woods. But in the end, it wasn't fate that saved me. It was the truth, finally spoken out loud, and the courage I built for myself, piece by piece, betrayal by betrayal, until I was strong enough to rewrite my own destiny with my own hands. And that is something no prophecy, no demon, and no secret could ever take away from me again.